Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So my name is Healy. I'm an assistant professor at the University Jean Monnet of Saint-Étienne. I'm really sorry, but I think there was some sort of confusion about what I can speak about. So I'm going to say a few words about education and skills supply, and then maybe I'll go back to integration in the labor market, because I can say a little more about this. Just a few remarks about education. In France, everything is education, as far as I know anyway, is in the hands of the state, the national state. Access to education under the age of 18 is not linked to your status. Maybe this should be noted. So you have automatic and free access to public schools, whatever your status. Of course, some NGOs are mobilized when some pupils are threatened to be sent back home, between brackets, of course. But then negotiations take place with the state and its representatives. As far as I know, local authorities don't really intervene in that field. Again, about professional competences and diplomas. Everything is in the hands of the state. Sorry. The only field in which local authorities actually intervene is language skills. And some cities, along with NGOs, do provide both asylum seekers and refugees with free language courses, especially because there's a lack of national policies in this field. And sometimes what I find interesting is that some municipalities even provide them with English courses, even though they rarely claim it, because they find it politically a bit hard to justify the fact that they help some populations get better skills in speaking English, implying that they are actually not going to stay in France. In terms of integrating the labor market, I hope it's not a problem if I go back to this topic. If I understood Laura's and Matteo's presentation, what I find funny is that France should be in a win-win situation, but is still in a losing situation in terms of how well or badly refugees manage to integrate its labor market. The main thing I think to keep in mind is that European countries have had different answers to the 2015 crisis, and France has remained on a restrictive stance to prevent asylum seekers from working, to make the country less attractive to what is commonly called here fake refugees. So this is a big difference with Sweden, as far as I know, and as far as it has been shown so far in the different presentations. So what happens in France is that, of course, you have two different statuses, asylum seeker, refugee, but for mainly one option, no help at all for finding a job, no help, which includes no help in making your professional competences and diplomas recognized. This was definitely true until very recently. It has changed a bit, and I'm going to try and show that. Asylum seekers in France are not allowed to work, and they haven't been since 1991, which follows the same idea as main national migration policies in France since the mid-70s, which is no more economic migration. And refugees, well, they're considered as benefiting from a protective status. They're considered as having the same rights as any other resident. So they're actually not helped by public policies, even though they face, of course, serious issues, language, housing, lack of competences recognized in France, etc. Since 2015, some public policies are starting to tackle these issues that NGOs haven't stopped shedding light on. But for the moment, I would say that everything is pretty much still at the stage of experimentation. So if we look, I don't know if you're interested in more details in the legal framework, but maybe I can just let you know more. Concretely speaking, so asylum seekers are not allowed to work during the examination of their application in France, and they receive a monthly allowance. But after a 6 months delay, if the asylum administration has not ruled on their application, in theory, they can request a work permit. What happens though is that to get it, the applicant has to have an employment contract of more than 3 months and to obtain a local branch of the Ministry of Work, Ministry of Labour. That will depend on the situation of the economic situation of the region they come from and so on. So in practice, these conditions imply that very few asylum seekers apply for a work permit. As far as refugees are concerned now, again, they benefit a full residency, from full residency rights. They do not have to get an authorization from the Ministry of Work to get a job. They benefit from the services of the employment agency, which is called Pôle emploi. Interestingly enough, it's only very recently that Pôle emploi started hiring employees that are dedicated to refugees. Again, it's very experimental. I don't have any research I can mobilize to know the impact of such a decision. But apart from that, Pôle emploi does nothing for refugees. And if they don't work, these refugees, they are entitled to the national help system for unemployed people. All these remarks, these supposed rights, explain the withdrawal from the state and the absence of programs targeted towards refugees in order to support their labor integration. Now, what has happened since 2015 and what has started to change is that some programs are now starting to target refugees. The balance is very unstable and asylum seekers remain, on the whole, out of these policies' targets. 2017 was launched what is called the HOPE program, which can be considered as the main tool of public policy for labor market integration for refugees still nowadays. As usual in France, it proposes an integrated approach of the refugee integration with professional training, accommodation offer, and language training. It's currently under evaluation, but it has shown some results. 1,500 people graduated from the program in 2019 and 68% obtained a job, but it's a very, very small population. In 2018, Monsieur Taché produced a report while inciting the French government to work at an ambitious integration policy. Following this, a new interministerial body was set up called the DIER, and they have a new approach to helping refugees integration by inciting them to volunteer in different organizations in the public interest. In France, it's called un service civique, maybe a civil service in English. And they target mainly people between the age of 18 and 25 who only get paid 580 euros per month. So they're not fully employed, but their idea is that if you start with volunteering, then after it will make it easier for you to get a proper job. In 2018, a big investment plan was launched called Plan d'investissement des compétences, so targeting competences of 15 billion euros, but it's a big but, not only targeting refugees, of course, and only it includes refugees. Let's put it positively. In parallel, some private actors have developed initiatives still concerning labour market integration, but of course they would need state support to reach a broader public, and national programs are only beginning. These programs, their general orientation is to favour middle-term actions, so of 2 or 3 years, and managed by non-state actors, but financially supported by state funds. One thing that can be mentioned here is the NGO called Forum Réfugiés, which developed a program called Accélère, and they try to, it's based on accelerated access to housing, language courses, and cooperation with both administrations and economic actors in order to favor access to work and job. And there are also what we can call social startups like Singa, and they have set up a business incubator called Finkela to provide support to refugee entrepreneurs in order to help them set up their own business. In conclusion, if I can still speak for a minute, asylum seekers do not enter the formal labour market, and the legal framework would need to be changed for them to enter the formal labour market. And refugees face huge issues, and public policies targeting them remain mainly national and are very recent. It's too early to assess their impact yet, but some efforts have been made since 2015 in line with the actions of the NGOs. So here is what I could mention, and trying to link education and labour market integration.